Mr. Mike Chasman split his childhood traveling between Boulder, Colorado, and Jerusalem, Israel, until the age of 21. Wow. Mike has been learning and leading since 2000 through his various entrepreneurial endeavors. He is currently on the board of 3 companies, coaches both executives and successful professionals, and consults in the areas of business systems, marketing, and technology. Hobbies include photography, travel, extreme sports, driving, including tanks. That's pretty badass. I'm just saying. That's not pretty bad. That's super badass. Tanks. I would love to drive a tank. Pets. Just adopted his first puppy in September 2015. Specializes in engineering solutions for customers as well. Mike's passions include one-on-one coaching, delivering and designing transformational trainings, and facilitating that once and for all shift that moves life in an area for you that never moved before. Ooh. He believes that who we are is a network of conversations. I'm really excited about this. The conversations we have with ourselves and those we gather to us to corroborate those conversations are the source of all our perceived limitations. Favorite quote: sometimes the questions are complicated and the answers. Let me reread that. Favorite quote. Right? I'm about to drop this, and you won't even guess who it's by. So, favorite quote: sometimes the questions are complicated and the answers are simple. Who's it by? Dr. Seuss. Yes. He's the most wise mother effer alive. Beautiful. Mike, are you ready to come on?
Woo!
He's ready.
Yeah.
All right. We are bringing you on
stoked.
right now, and you are now live, Mike. Thank you so much for being live on the air. We're going to have a lot of fun today. Are you ready?
I am pretty ready. I'm struggling with this fear of failure.
Fear of failure. You're going to crush it, man. We're going to have a lot of fun. So before we dive in, I want to hear about more of your story. You know, there's a little bit in there in the intro, but I want to hear, like, what was the journey from where you started to where you are now, so people who are listening in the audience, they can get more of a background, they can understand a little bit more about you and connect with you, man.
Sure. Well, I was born in Israel, as per my intro.
Yep.
And my parents were professionals. My dad was actually an aerospace engineer. And he went to school in Aerospace University in Colorado. So we moved out there when I was really young. And I remember you talking about your experience feeling like an outsider, right? So I didn't actually speak English when I first moved to Colorado. And I learned English, but I always felt like an outsider because I always felt like a foreigner. I had a weird name, weird last name, and my parents spoke with an accent, so I was always a foreigner. Fast forward, and I was 11. My parents were having some issues with their marriage, and my mom decided that it'd be a good idea to kidnap me and my sister and fly us back to Israel to save us from my monster of a dad kind of deal. And again, that was pretty much a story of hers. She needed to justify getting out. And again, I was put back in Israel, and again, I was a foreigner because now I was an American, according to the Israelis. So again, I felt like an outsider. About a year later, my mom discovered religion, and pretty strict religion, and put me in an all boys Orthodox school in Israel. And once again, I was the outsider. I was the it was really interesting because secular culture in Israel idolizes America and everything it's about, whereas religious culture in Israel despises America and everything it's about.
Yeah.
Because it's like, the height of sin. So again, my experience was being an outsider, and I actually remember the kids used to call me Amerikaki.
Cocky, yeah,
cocky, yeah. So, so again, fast forward, I was 21, so from 11 to 21, good 10 years of kind of being indoctrinated and having no choice and having to just adapt because that's what we do as kids. and I moved back to the U.S. I didn't actually know anyone, but I knew that it wasn't working for me in Israel. I wasn't happy with the culture, the conversation. I related more or identified more with American kids than I did with Israeli kids. So I moved to Baltimore. I didn't actually know anybody, and I struggled for about a year and change. And that's where I found out that my parents never bothered to file paperwork to have me be a U.S. citizen. Right? So even though I was American, I hung out with American kids. I consider English my first language, even though it really wasn't. But I think I have like a fifth grade Hebrew, something like that. And just found out, like, I'm 21 and I find out I'm not a U.S. citizen because I never actually cared to look. I mean, who thinks about these things, right? And because I was 21, I had to start from scratch.
Wow.
Like literally file paperwork as if I'd never been here before. So that was a struggle for me, right? Because, again, I was struggling in Baltimore. I decided that the best thing for me would be to move to New York because they don't really care. They just pay cash, right? Or a lot of businesses pay cash in New York. So a year later, a year and a half after I moved to Baltimore, I moved to New York. Again, didn't know anybody, just knew that it wasn't working for me in Baltimore. So I moved to New York. Next day I got a job as a locksmith. I didn't actually have a career. I didn't have a regular education because I did a bunch of biblical studies, and most of it is debating, right? And I struggled for a little while, tried different businesses. So sorry. Somebody hit my car a second ago, and wanted to know if it was okay to leave. And I was like, we're good. Because I'm in a parking lot. So in any case, I'm, in New York, struggling with trying to make a living, and I didn't really have a career, but I still had this religion. I was still part of the community, but again, I didn't feel like I fit in. I wasn't really making enough and didn't think about it, right? Because I had this conversation in my head that God will provide, right? And there's really no point in trying really hard because if I'm supposed to get it, I will. And if I'm not supposed to get it, it doesn't matter how hard I work, I won't achieve anything, right? Because you only get what God decides you're going to get. And this is just how I felt kind of growing up. And I was also 27 at the time, right? Like I lived there for a few years. And there's a big stigma about being single and older than 18, essentially 18, 19 in this. So I was kind of looked down on by everyone else, almost like an outsider. And I got set up on a bunch of dates, and again, the dates are designed to get you married because the point of life is to procreate. And I got married when I was 27. And again, the point of marriage is procreation. So I had a child every 2 years or so. So I have 4 beautiful daughters. And I moved to Baltimore because to try to find cheap housing, because at the time buying a row home in New York was like $1 million, and I could get a nice home in Baltimore for about 85. Not million, like 85 grand. So, right. So I moved to Baltimore, and I tried a bunch of different businesses as an employee or manager or whatever. And my wife at the time was all about education. She's all about you go to school, you get an education, you get a degree, and then you get a good job. So I never considered that as a thing, right? Different conversations. And she suggested, because I always liked computer-related things, that I go spend some money and take a computer course. So I spent like $30,000. I went and got a student loan, and took a course at Johns Hopkins for computer career. They had a computer career institute. So I took a 8-month full-time course and became a systems engineer, which is pretty cool. I love gadgets and tech and so forth. This was back in 2001.
Okay.
So I got a job as a systems engineer and kind of skipped from company to company getting significant raises every time because that's pretty much what it takes, especially in the IT field. And I remember thinking to myself, my mother, Jewish mother, used to always say, you can do whatever you want in life. Like, you could be anything. You could do anything. And it wasn't until my early 30s that I realized, yeah, I can do anything, but I actually have to pick one, right? Like, I can't just do everything. I have to pick one. And I at the time, I chose systems engineering, and I did a bunch of computer stuff for a while, and got really fed up with how I was treated as an employee, because people have, businesses have computers, and a lot of businesses run 24/7, and they don't want any downtime during business hours. So when something breaks, you usually have to fix it after hours. So I'd have companies schedule me out for 24-hour shifts at a time, and I wouldn't get paid anymore. I do like 60-hour weeks, and I wouldn't get paid for it. So I decided to start my own IT consultancy, which is funny because I didn't know anything about all this. I didn't know what it was like to start a business. I essentially started myself a new job, right, with me as the boss, like the worst boss possible, right? Because the voices that we have in our head, the down talk, the self-talk, there's no filter there. So something a boss would never tell you, you sure as hell tell yourself.
Right.
Right? And then the measure of success is how much money you make, not whether or not you complete tasks at a job. As an entrepreneur, the default measure of success is how much money you make. So it gets pretty difficult to be your own boss that way. So I was doing a lot of business networking, and I started really noticing the limitations my religion was putting on my interactions with people and what I could be a part of. And it suddenly hit me that the whole nature of the particular religion I was in was to segregate me from humanity, which is not at all what I'm about. And I suddenly thought about it for the first time in my adult life. Like, wait, is this something I want? Because it's just something I was doing habitually. And I realized that no, this doesn't fit with who I am as a person, which is a completely different conversation, right? About who we are as an identity. I had a conversation with my wife at the time, and we agreed to get a divorce because this is a short version of it, right? Without all the yelling and the screaming. But she was pretty pissed that I decided not to be part of the religion, and she, had no interest in being, in a relationship with someone who was not of the same faith. And then I started on personal development. Pretty much. The book that started it all for me was actually Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That blew my mind.
Good book.
Because I'd never considered the possibility of money making money for me. Right? And I remember reading this book, completely obliterated everything I thought of from my own business and for what I do with my life moving forward. And I remember calling my dad, and I said, "Oh my God, I just read the coolest book. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad." And my dad said, "Oh yeah, I read it way back." I'm like, "Why the hell didn't you mention it to me?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I don't know." That's my dad, the forgetful professor.
Yeah.
So that's just a little history of how I got to be into personal development, right? I did a whole bunch of networking events. I actually went to 4 different networking groups a week.
Wow.
And I was promoting my business, and I was meeting people, and I met this one guy who young guy, younger than I was at the time. I was in my 30s, right? And he was in his early 20s, and he was in debt, about $250,000 in debt, and he was freaking out, trying to start up his business, and it wasn't going the way he wanted it to. And I kind of took him under my wing at the time. Like we had conversations, and I was sharing my experiences, kind of having like mindset conversations. And it really made a big difference for him. And fast forward like 2 years, his company's worth about $2 million. And he tells me, 2 years, $50 million. Sorry.
Wow.
It was valued at $50 million. And he's like, dude, you should do this for a living. And I remember looking at him, and I'm like, really? People do this for a living? And I found this program in D.C. Called Accomplishment Coaching. I don't know if you've heard of them. Or maybe you've heard of them from me. And I spent like $16,000 in a year of my life. And that's when I started. That was 5 years ago. That's when I started my coaching practice. And of course, I've been spending thousands and thousands of dollars and forever on all kinds of programs, from Landmark Education and New Peaks, now Success Resources America, right? And that brings me to the present. So that's my little history.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. There was a lot of gold in there,
right.
and some really great stuff. And I just want to share that Diana Mandel, who was on earlier, she said hi, guys. She's tuning back in. She rocked it, and that's awesome. So I really loved how, it kind of slapped you upside the face. Like, this dude's like, you should do this, and I'm willing to bet that probably wasn't the only time where you'd helped people, where you'd given advice to people, or you'd coach people, because that kind of a skill doesn't develop overnight. It doesn't develop instantly.
Sure.
You'd probably like trained people up until that point, but he was the catalyst that got you to say, I can get paid for this, like, wow, that's awesome.
Right?
Let's totally dive into that world and into that realm. And what I love is that you went head first, man. Your feet first, head first, whatever. You dove in, and you did accomplishment coaching, $15,000. Let's get this certification. Let's figure out how to grow a coaching practice, a coaching business, how to get clients, all this kind of stuff. Like, boom, like, let's go. And that's how people succeed. That's how people really just get that rocket start, is when they go all in. And I know for you and I, we're both coaching people. So if there's anybody out there who's hesitating and you've been not experiencing the results that you want, I want you to type in the chat box commit. And it doesn't have to be commit to coaching, doesn't have to be committing to us, but just commit to figuring it out, commit to working it out, commit to giving it 100%, no matter where you're at. So type that in the comment box, commit, because it's so valuable, and you're showing the universe, you're showing yourself that you are willing to do what it takes. Like I said, whether it's hiring a coach, whether it's reading the books necessary, whether it's going to the seminars, whether it's manifesting, attracting, meditating, all of it. Just make sure that you're willing to do what it takes. And who knows what that pathway is for you, because it's for everybody, it's different, right? And Mike, something that we're going to be talking about today is our relationship to failure, but two, the conversations that make us up. And when we commit and when we make a declaration like that, committing on Facebook in a comment box, and they write commit. And if you're out there, write commit right now. Like, what happens? Let's start with the conversations, and then we'll dive into this whole relationship to failure thing. So when someone says commit and they type it in on a comment box, what does that do in terms of the conversations they have with themselves and the conversations that other people have with them or about them?
Well, I believe we have all these thoughts, right? And thoughts are kind of energy. I mean, they do end up being physical pathways in your brain, but it's electrical currents that go across those pathways. And I believe that putting it out there in the universe is a physical process, because we live in a physical world. Now, the physical world is controlled by energy, but us actually creating something. And I mentioned this to you on a conversation, right? I'm not a religious person, right? I'm spiritual. But there's a lot of cool quotes in the Bible and throughout history about what it takes to create. And there's in Genesis that whole conversation about how, God said, "Let there be light," and there was light, and said this and that, and there was this and that, right? And then he created man in his image. and I always took it to mean like, yeah, you know, whatever form God is, it kind of looks like us, right? As a kid, right? But I came to realize that it was that ability to create with our words that is the godliness in us all. Like that is how we're created in God's image. In other words, we are gods. We create with our words. And it's the words that we actually bring out to the universe physically. The stuff we think about definitely shapes our identity and who we are in the physical world. But it's the words that come out of our mouth that actually shape what we create.
Wow. So we're literally creating the world around us with our words.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, you've always heard, like, when you interview a bunch of witnesses at a crime scene, you don't hear two identical stories, right? And it's because while we may use the same words, we have different intentions behind them, different context behind those words.
Yes.
And one of my favorite examples of that is the dog. Like, when I say dog, what do you think? Like, what comes to mind?
Man's best friend.
Right? Yeah. So people think, you know, loyal, friendly, cuddly, right? But let's say I had a bad experience with a dog, or I've heard of someone having a bad experience of a dog. And when I hear dog, I think sharp teeth, vicious,
Danger.
Carnivore,
Yes.
unpredictable,
Yes.
right? And we both encounter the same dog in the street. You can imagine we have very different experiences of that same exact dog.
Yes.
And I bet you that dog would behave differently to both of us. Like, he might growl at me because I'm look kind of suspicious, or I have a weird energy about me.
Yeah.
Right? And the dog's like all over you, licking you and stuff. And then I invent this cool story that, right, that A, I'm right, dogs are mean, but two, dogs just don't like me.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so from then on, when I say the word dog, or I hear dog in a sentence, that's what I think. That's the context that actually drives this. Warner Earhart says the context is decisive. So we don't relate to things as they are. We relate them right as we are, as the stories we have about them. So my story, there's plenty of stuff in there that speaks to that. How different you either make up in your head as a child, or that you inherit from your family or society or the media. The media is a really big one, or your religion, right? Like, I can't think of anything offhand, but relationship to money, for example, right? The root of all evil. We've all heard that. Like, imagine trying to make money while in the back of your mind the conversation is, money is the root of all evil. I can't figure out why I just can't make money. Right?
Right.
Right? Because out loud, you're taking actions to money, but in your mind you're thinking it's the root of all evil. I don't really want it. I don't want evil in my life. And we have plenty of stuff like that. I again, doing landmark education, I discovered a bunch of this stuff. That's when I first got a kind of glimpse at how we invent these stories and they run our lives. So when I was in first grade, I had a crush on this girl named Angela. Blonde hair, blue eyes. I have a type, apparently. And I gave her my teddy bear. Like, I had this teddy bear I used to bring to school because it was first grade and I could. His name was Timmy. He had brown curly fur and a red bow tie. And I walk up to Angela and I kind of hand her my bear. And she looks at me and looks down at the bear and throws him at me, and then starts dancing around the playground chanting, "Mike has a crush on me, Mike has a crush on me." And in that moment, I remember thinking, wow, this is not right. I was nice and giving and sweet, and she was mean. I get it. Girls are mean. And that's a little conversation I tucked away as a fact. And then the rest of my life, I mean, this is how you know, the nucleus of an identity. The rest of your life, you're not exploring what's there. You're looking for evidence that you're right.
Yep.
Right? So I would look for evidence that girls are mean. And it really wasn't until the forum that I realized that that's what I was doing.
Mm. Wow. That's incredible. And then you saw that conversation was made in a moment, right? And then once you saw that conversation and you distinguished it, then what? Then how did you get power around it? How did you what did you do next?
Well, it ends up being really difficult for people to uncollapse a story from reality.
Mm.
I've had this with my clients a lot. For example, I had this conversation with this woman who was having trouble with her marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is, she didn't come to me because of the marriage conversation. She came to me because of trouble in her business.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking about how she does everything in her business, and she doesn't have time to deal with customers and do the bookkeeping. And
mm-hmm.
and I, we had a few conversations. So I'm like, I'm confused. Isn't your husband an accountant? And she says, yeah. I'm like, so why are you doing the accounting for your business? And she says, I would never let my husband touch the business accounting. And I was confused. I said, isn't he your partner in the business? She says, yeah. I'm like, don't you trust him? And she says, no. And I'm like, why don't you trust your husband? And she says, well, because I don't trust that he's going to do the right thing. Mm. I'm like, why is that? And she says, because he doesn't love me. Mm. And I asked, what makes you say he doesn't love you? And she says, he told me so. I said, really? He said the words, I don't love you. And she said, yes. I'm like, I got to hear this story. So she says, okay, we had a big argument. It was right before my birthday. And we decided to go out and take a walk to blow off some steam. And I walked in front of a jewelry store. And we just so happened to walk in front of a jewelry store. And I saw this ring I really liked. So I said to him, wow, I'd really like that for my birthday. And he turned and looked at me and said, really? Because I thought I was going to give you a divorce for your birthday. And she was quiet. And I'm like, okay, so when did he say I don't love you? She said, right then. So she translated the words, I want to give you, I'm going to give you a divorce, to I don't love you. I said, how long was this story? Like, how long ago was this story? She said, 5 years. Oh. And I said, wait, so has he done things to show you he loves you since? And she says, yeah. And that's when she suddenly got it. Oh. Right? Because she wasn't looking for anything but evidence that she was right. Yeah. Wow. And because she collapsed the story of what he said with him meaning, I don't love you, mm-hmm. just as the words, I want a divorce were real, that's mm-hmm. how real it felt to her that he said the words, I don't love you, even though he never said that.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah. So I know none of this has been about
it's perfect. Perfect. Hey, perfect. Wherever we're going, we're going.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. Totally. The funny thing is, I wrote a little LinkedIn article about this topic, mm-hmm. and I was watching this video about gazelles. Actually, it was about cheetahs, but gazelles were in it, right?
Being eaten.
And I was watching, right? I was watching like this whole pack of cheetahs, and they were kind of lazing about. You know how cheetahs are. You've got cheetahs, right?
Oh yeah. There's one in my backyard.
Right?
Right
now.
Right
fleet.
Yeah.
A fleet of cheetahs. And a gazelle passed by, and they jumped up and they gave chase, which is what cheetahs do. And cheetahs are sprinters. They have high energy, but they expend it really quickly, and then they tire out. Mm-hmm. And the gazelle had a head start, and they couldn't catch up in time before they ran out of steam, mm-hmm. and they literally just all plopped down. They just, we're done. Yeah. Like you just watch them fade away, and just they were done. Yeah. So they lay there panting and trying to regain their energy. And then a few minutes later, another gazelle came by, and they jumped up and pounced on it and caught it and ate. And I remember thinking in the moment, that is so funny. If that was a human situation, it would go a little differently. It'd be a bunch of humans sitting around, and a gazelle would pass by, and they would jump up and chase after it, and then they'd get tired and sit, collapse, and then it didn't matter how much time passed by. Another gazelle would pass, and they'd look at it and be like, "Nah, I'm pretty sure I'm not a good gazelle hunter. I'm going to let this one go. I mean, I tried already and I didn't catch anything. I'm sure something else will come around."
Yeah.
And that's, animals don't have that. There is no fear of failure, which is not, I'm not trying to, I don't want you to be confused between the fear of failure and the fear of death or the fear of pain. That's something completely different. I'm talking about this conversation that we have in our head about what it means to fail. So what is it for you, just out of curiosity?
What it means to fail is to, for example, in the past, it would mean that I'm a loser. It would mean that I'm not accepted. It would mean that I'm not good enough, not worthy, those kinds of things.
Yeah, same here, right?
Yeah.
And the funniest thing is the relationship to progress around it. Like, I realized we're task-based. Like, we feel productive or even accomplished if we complete many tasks, right?
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that we relate to life that way, right? But life is not a task, because we all know what the completion of life is, and there are shortcuts to get there, and that's not what I'm advocating. Right?
Don't take the shortcuts.
Don't take the shortcut in life.
Those shortcuts. But
that's it. If life is a task to be completed, there are easier ways to complete it than going through life.
Well, that's I think what people think is that life is a task to be completed. Like, once I get there, once I have something. And I was mentioning it earlier on I don't know if it was my own the 12th hour. Anyways, I was saying that we're born perfect as babies, and then it becomes this like rat race to have more, be more, do more, and accomplish more. And in reality, we've been perfect from the beginning, but we've been brainwashed and programmed to believe that we have to achieve and do to be able to be worthy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another facet of that is how much work it took to get to where we're at. So my favorite analogy is a baby walking. Have you ever seen a baby learn how to walk?
I don't think so.
Child? I haven't. Right? Yeah. And I watched it with my girlfriend's children as well. Wow. So it's actually pretty amazing. So at some point, they decide that being upright on 2 feet is where it's at. Right? It's not a question of can I do it or should I do it? Is it possible? No. It's I'm going to do it no matter what it takes. And what it takes is standing up a bunch of times and falling down a bunch of times, and standing up a bunch of times and falling down a bunch of times. Right? Was it Winston Churchill who said the definition of success is moving from failure to failure with enthusiasm? Barely say it, right?
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's what it takes to learn how to walk. But we don't remember all that work. All we're thinking is, why can't I think say walking? But it wasn't easy. It was a pain in the ass, literally.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So our relationship to failure is that it's something to avoid. It's something that means that we've failed in life or failed as a human. But the truth is that failure is a necessary component of success. You can't skip. You can't skip ahead, just like you can't skip to the end of life and get anywhere. You can't skip to the end of any kind of task or journey without going through the failures. So the sooner you accept that failure is a part of success, the more successes you're going to have.
Wow. And so I'm sure there's a conceptual part of that, which is like, okay, now I get it, but how does that actually manifest in how we show up in the world and how we relate to failure in reality, because like it's great conceptually, and how do people who are watching right now, because I'm sure everybody who's watching wants to know, so now what do I do with this information?
Sure. So what happens is the fear of failure has us avoid starting things. We're not sure we're going to succeed or how we're going to succeed, right? Because we don't want to fail. And if we don't know how we're going to complete it, we just don't start.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the last time you were really excited doing something, aside from today? Right now?
The last time, I'm sure I was excited yesterday to do something, to go to the gym.
Go to the gym.
Yeah.
What was exciting about it? Or what part was exciting?
What part was exciting was that I get to get a pump and feel like I'm accomplished because I'm making progress, growing, getting a good workout in. I know I'm going to feel sore, and it's like I feel accomplished.
And when you completed working out,
Mm-hmm.
how excited were you about working out?
I guess I was glad to be done with it. I was glad to be completed and moving on, and excited about the
Mm-hmm.
recovery process and the next workout.
So my belief is that we have, I can't really draw it here, right? But we have this beginning and end of a task.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry, beginning and end of a task of something, of some goal, and we have this gap in the middle, which is where we actually see progress. We're looking at the goal that we're going after. We see it in our sights, and we see progress towards that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the most exciting space to be in,
Yes.
I believe.
Yes.
And I call that surfing the gap, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I find, people have these goals, for example, to be a millionaire,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they really want to be a millionaire. They have this goal of $1 million, and then they get there, and they're like, meh, okay, let's do $100 million, right? So then, right, they're not happy with $1 million,
Right.
so they go and they work really hard to make $100 million, and then they're like, okay. And the reason I believe this is because, again, the way our brain works,
Mm-hmm.
it's all about keeping us where we're at. Why is that?
Safe. Survival.
Safety, survival, exactly. So we have some of the slowest reflexes on the planet of all the animals. So the way our brain gets around that, right, if we had to survive on our instincts, we would have been extinct. So the way we get around that is we try to predict things. And we're so intent on predicting that we won't even be logical about our predicting. It only takes one time for us to have a pattern, which, of course, anyone doing any kind of real science knows that doesn't work that way.
Right.
You need multiple samples to infer a pattern.
To form a conclusion.
Something, yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll have something happen once and make a decision about it, and the rest of the time we're ignoring everything to find evidence that we're right about our assumption.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So we, in everything in life, we make a decision, we look for evidence that we're right, and we ignore all the rest of the data.
Wow. So let's stick with that. If you have more to continue on that. And before we get there, we also had, it's not Scarlett because that's not her name, but it's what shows up on Facebook. I can't remember what your real name is, Scarlett. What is it? Do you remember?
Courtney.
So Courtney said, how do you transform the feeling of failure that is inevitable into fuel for thriving in your commitment to your goals, number one? And number two, how do you actively combat your survival mechanism when you are inches away from your successful moments?
Identifying it. It's different parts of the brain. So your amygdala is what actually fires off your reptilian brain. And the funny thing is, it's actually been shown that when you're in a state of flight or fight or panic, when your amygdala fires off, the was it frontal cortex or whatever it is, the part of your brain that actually has all the logical part, actually gets dormant. So your IQ literally goes down when you're in a panic.
Yes.
right? And so the brain is trying to keep you small because that's what's safe, because that's what's predictable, what you already know, even if it's not what you want. So anytime you have any sort of success in life, the first thing your brain tries to do is rob you of that triumph. And the way it does that is tell you, oh, it really wasn't that hard. It wasn't that big a deal. I can't believe you're thinking of celebrating about this. Right? Like you feel almost ashamed that you shouldn't be celebrating this milestone. And that's your brain trying to sabotage your success and keep you where you're at. So the first step is identifying it, that this is a process. That's just what it is. And not resisting it and not fighting it, because what you resist persists. So identifying that that's what it is, it's just a process, and focusing on that hope, on what you want to create, just like Heather said, focusing on those moments of hope. So what was Courtney's question again? It was a two-part, right?
Yeah. How do you transform that feeling of failure that is inevitable into fuel for thriving in your commitment to your goals? And how do you actively... Go ahead.
Well, the first part of that is that feeling of failure, that dread. So I went skydiving for the first time 4 years ago. And it was part of a larger goal. I decided to write a bucket list of all the things I wanted to do, and skydiving was there. But I was too overweight to go skydiving. I had to lose 100 pounds.
Wow.
So I did, right? And I completely forgot about the skydiving part, and I was like, oh, crap, I have to go skydiving, right? So I went skydiving, and I don't know if you've ever gone. Have you gone?
I haven't, but I'm committed to.
Yeah, I'm committed to going again.
Yes.
So when you're sitting on the plane, about to fall off, because let's be real here, you're not jumping anywhere. You're literally falling off a plane. It's not skydiving or jumping. It's sky falling.
Yes.
So you're on a plane, and you're sitting on the edge, and you have this gut-wrenching twist in your stomach that you almost want to throw up or pass out or whatever, and then you fall over. And in that moment, you're kind of resigned, because there's nothing you can do. You can't go back. You're falling at like 90 miles an hour. There's really nothing you can do, and you give in. And it's the most beautiful, peaceful, amazing experience. And and then the parachute hits, and that's like a jerk into reality, and then you just start floating down, and you get this beautiful view. And I suddenly realized that my relationship to fear had always been something to avoid at all costs. Fear is my body telling me, avoid this at all costs. And I realized that was wrong. It's false. We have this fear of what we can't predict and what is unknown. But the truth is, what we have is the result of what we know. And there's no way to have something else without trying something new. So that fear of failure is the fear of unknown, is the fear of the unknown, the fear of trying something we've never done before, but that's the only way to have what you want in life. Yeah. Otherwise, you'd already have it.
Yes. Yes, and what I just wrote down is an affirmation, I guess reprogramming myself. I love fear. It means I'm on track. If I experience fear,
absolutely,
fear means I'm on track. Fear means I'm doing something right.
Absolutely, and I'm not talking about fear of like a bear or a rattlesnake, or getting hit by a car. I'm not saying put that away. I'm saying the fear of taking some action. I remember when I did my forum, I had this terror of speaking in public. I don't know why. Most people do. You've heard that Seinfeld, right?
What?
The Seinfeld. He says the here in America, public speaking. The number 2? Death. That means that people are more afraid of
number
dying.
1, public speaking.
Of public
number
speaking.
2 is death. Got it.
Yeah. So Jerry Seinfeld says that means that people are more afraid at a funeral. That's what it was. He said at a funeral, people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy.
Yep.
How amazing is that? So So when I did my forum, before I did my forum, I couldn't speak in front of like 3 people. Like literally 2 was the limit, and that drove me crazy.
2 was the
Right, 2 was the limit. When I graduated the forum, I spoke in front of 260 people. I got up on stage, and I said nothing. I literally just stood there and said nothing, and I scanned the audience while all 260 people were looking up at me. And I just scanned the audience, and then people started whispering, and there was a little rustle, and the forum leader said, "Are you okay? Do you need to say anything? Do you need to step back down?" And I laughed, and I said, "My whole life I've been afraid of getting up on stage and choking. So I decided I was going to get up on stage and face my worst fear and say nothing." And that's when I realized that relationship to fear. There's a technique I use with my clients. I call the circle of fear, where I go through step by step what is the worst case scenario, because the brain is kind of lazy and jumps to conclusions. And if you actually put it out on paper, you kind of laugh that that's what, right? It's usually something like, okay, so I'll speak up at work, and my boss will get mad and fire me. And then I'll come home and have to tell my wife that I got fired because I spoke up at work. And she'll be mad at me how I could dare speak up at work and get fired, and she'll kick me out of the house. And then I'll live on the street. And when you're on the street, there's nothing better to do but drugs. So I'll be living in a cardboard box addicted to all kinds of drugs if I speak up right now. And that's usually the crazy cycle your brain goes through.
Right.
But because you don't verbalize it, it's totally valid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Until you say it out loud and you're like, what the hell was I scared of? Right?
Yes. Yes. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. So Scarlett said you rock.
Thank you.
Or Courtney said you rock. Sarah said skydiving definitely isn't peaceful. It's more of a rush is what she felt. And she told me I should definitely do it. I definitely will do it, Sarah, I promise.
Absolutely.
Courtney said identifying your fears makes them easier to combat. Hell yeah. The first step to solving any perceived problem is awareness that there is a perceived problem. And then Sarah said, feel the fear and do it anyways. I always say, what's up, fear? I got this. Thank you.
Booyah.
Booyah!
One of my favorite examples of this is horror movies. Like, I'm not a big fan of horror movies. My girlfriend is.
Right.
But I have seen some. And I've noticed the most terrifying place in a horror movie is before you actually see whatever it is that's supposed to be scary. Right? Like, there's this terror, you're freaking out, you don't know what to do, and then you see the monster, and you're like, really? It's not that bad. They're going to kill it at the end, aren't they? Right?
Yes. Yes.
Expectation is so much greater than what's actually out there to be afraid of.
Wow.
So the way I stay excited and the way I stay in the gap is the constant question, what am I creating today that I'm excited about? Right? What possibilities do I have up in the air that I'm excited about? And to the audience, if you don't have anything you're excited about right now, go create something. Go fail.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yes. Dude, absolutely, Mike. We're running through the finish line here. Let's bring it all together. If there's any last minute points that you wanted to share, last minute, things about conversations or relationships to fear, and then also let's share with the audience how people can stay connected with you and follow you on your journey or take the next step, get some free information, schedule a call with you. Let's dive into that as well.
Sure. Well, always kind of, do stuff. I'm kidding. My girlfriend asked me, so what do I do next? I'm like, stuff. What kind of stuff? I'm like, stuff and stuff.
The good stuff.
The stuff. So being an inquiry, that's what it's about. Know that you have these processes. A really good book that made a difference for me was I'm trying to remember what it was called offhand. Let me look it up real quick. It's Manifestation. It Couldn't Be Easier, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm bringing up my Kindle right now because I was in the middle of reading it. Library. I have way too many books.
No such thing.
Manifesting Change, right? Manifesting Change. It Couldn't Be Easier by Mike Dooley.
Okay.
That's an amazing book.
Wow.
Manifesting Change. It Couldn't Be Easier. He has an audiobook too. So I'm all about brain hack, right? There's no reason for you to fight something head on because it doesn't actually work that way. If you identify something you don't like and you focus on eradicating it, you just make it stronger.
Yeah.
Because you actually give it something to push against.
It's funny.
And what I've noticed,
Courtney said she's been reading that all day.
Nice.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Awesome. Continue.
So I've noticed that that my survival mechanism, everyone's survival mechanism, was designed to keep one small, right? But it's about you. It's not about anybody else. So the easiest way to circumvent it is to make it about somebody else. So one of the hacks I like to use that might be useful to the listeners is relate to yourself in the third party. And I don't mean to other people. I mean, you were talking about self-love, right? So there's things you would do for others that you wouldn't do for yourself. Schedule some time with you. Like relate to yourself as, Chris Burns, my favorite person in the world, who's always there for me. He's, no matter what, he's always has my back. He's never abandoned me.
Wow.
From the moment I was born till the moment I die, he's always going to be around. Schedule time with him and celebrate him. Like, what would I do? He just had an achievement. He just closed another client. He just helped someone achieve something they couldn't have before. I'm going to schedule some time to celebrate him today in my calendar. I'm going to block out time and spend time with Chris Burns.
Wow. That's huge.
That's a way to get around it, right?
That's huge.
So I call that a little survival mechanism hack. Because you relate to you as somebody else.
Yes. Wow. It's powerful. All right, so how can people stay connected with you? What's the next step, man?
They're welcome to go to my website, MikeChasman.com, or email me, Mike@MikeChasman.com. It's really complicated.
I know.
Right? I'm also super techie, so I'm Mike Chasman on Skype. I'm Mike Chasman on Facebook. But that's the best way. I'd love to speak with anyone and support anyone with what they're up to.
Cool. And then what?
And I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. I love your energy. I love who you are. I'm excited to create with you.
Yes.
So thanks again for the invite.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Where can people see you and expect you to be in the coming months and years?
Well, I'm working with a few different people on some trainings, some personal trainings. I don't have anything on the books yet. I still do one-on-one coaching, so that's always there. I will be doing some more New Peaks programs because they're a lot of fun, and I really enjoy the networking.
Yep.
And I'm definitely planning on a cross-country road trip. So I'm working on a zero-impact mobile home, and plan at some point, hopefully in the next 6 months or so, do a little cross-country road trip. So I'll be coming to visit you.
Epic. Let's go. Let's go. Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, it sounds like you're really excited about life and what you're creating, and you're impacting people in a very big way. And Mike, thank you for taking time out of your schedule and giving such incredible value. This conversation was a lot of fun, and I love great conversations, deep conversations, meaningful conversations, and I'm sure everyone who is in the audience got some really great value, especially about fear and failure, dude. Like just insight and awareness to what is running people, what's running the show for most people, to be able to have awareness and power over that, and the ability to choose something else is like, it's everything, man. You're breaking the shackles of imprisonment that a lot of people have been stuck with for all their life, and that's really what you're doing.
It's really important to work with someone on this because it's not something you can do alone. Because as one of my friends said, don't get high in your own supply. So basically, your brain, the one who got you in this, is not going to be the one to get you out.
Nope.
So you need to lean on somebody else for this.
Amen. So You heard it. You heard the man. Hire Mike Chasman. He'll rock your world. He
Hire
will
Chris.
rock your world. Hire one of us. Hire one of us and grow and see yourself flourish and blossom. And Mike, dude, thank you again for being on here, for giving your time so generously. And we look forward to having you back on a future episode, and keep
My
rocking
pleasure.
it. Keep transforming
Definitely.
the world, man.
Booyah.
Booyah!
Such a pleasure. I look forward to connecting real soon.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon.
Peace.
Take care, man.